Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava. We got one here. You looking for a sheet?
Yeah.
We're right here.
All the way over here?
Yeah. Just close the door. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Ramadhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Padajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Padajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama, 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 Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnubhad Paramahansa Paravjakacharya Ashtoto Tatashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravjakacharya Ashtoto Tatashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad-gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All right. Page 642. Hopefully you don't have to worry about your book. In fact, that is an old book. I can see it right now. I'm glad you have your seat there. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 31st day of May 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad-gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 17, The Divisions of Faith, text 4 on page 642. Yajante Satvika Devan Yaksha Rakshangsi Rajasaha Pretan Bhuta Ganangsh Chanye Yajante Tamasa Janaha Yajante Satvika Devan Yaksha Rakshangsi Rajasaha Pretan Bhuta Ganangs Chanye Yajante Tamasa Janaha Yajante Satvika Devan Yaksha Rakshangsi Rajasaha Pretan Bhuta Ganangs Chanye Yajante Tamasa Janaha Yajante Satvika Devan Yaksha Rakshangsi Rajasaha Pretan Bhuta Ganangs Chanye Yajante Tamasa Janaha. Okay, so now, for future reference, before you chant, you'll be chanting first and you'll be chanting second. At the end of the line, you see that Rajasaha, it's a long A. Do you see that little line over the last A there? That means that it's not Rajasaha, it's Rajasaha. Okay? Same thing on the last word, Janaha, not Janaha. When it's a short A, then you do Janaha. But if it's long, it's Janaha. Okay, go ahead. Yajante Satvika Devan Yaksha Rakshansi Rajasaha Pretan Bhuta Ganangs Chanye Tamasa Jana. We did a little work. All right, give it a shot. You're up. Yajante Satvika Devan Yaksha Raksanti Rajasaha Pretan Bhuta Ganangs Chanye Janaha. Janaha. Okay, we'll work at it. All right, well, the words Yajante, worship Satvikaha, those who are in the mode of goodness, Devan, demigods, Yaksha, Rakshangsi, demons, Rajasaha, those who are in the mode of passion, Pretan, spirits of the dead, Bhutaganan, ghosts, Cha and Anye, others, Yajante, worship, Tamasaha, in the mode of ignorance, Janaha, people. Translation. Men in the mode of goodness worship the demigods. Those in the mode of passion worship the demons. And those in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits. Purport. In this verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead describes different kinds of worshippers according to their external activities. According to scriptural injunction, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipable. But those who are not very conversant with or faithful to the scriptural injunctions worship different objects according to their specific situations in the modes of material nature. Those who are situated in goodness generally worship the demigods. The demigods include Brahma, Shiva, and others such as Indra, Chandra, and the sun god. There are various demigods. Those in goodness worship a particular demigod for a particular purpose. Similarly, those who are in the mode of passion worship the demons. We recall that during the Second World War, a man in Calcutta worshipped Hitler because thanks to that war, the man, had amassed a large amount of wealth by dealing in the black market. Similarly, those in the modes of passion and ignorance generally select a powerful man to be God. They think that anyone can be worshipped as God and that the same results will be obtained. Now, it is clearly described here that those who are in the mode of passion worship and create such gods, and those who are in the mode of ignorance and darkness worship dead spirits. Sometimes people worship at the tomb of some dead man. Sexual service is also considered to be in the mode of darkness. Similarly, in remote villages in India, there are worshippers of ghosts. We have seen that in India, the lower class people sometimes go to the forest, and if they have knowledge that a ghost lives in a tree, they worship that tree and offer sacrifices. These different kinds of worship are not actually God worship. God worship is for persons who are transcendently situated in pure goodness. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 4.3.23, it is said, Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabditam. When a man is situated in pure goodness, he worships Vasudeva. The purport is that those who are completely purified of the material modes of nature and who are transcendently situated can worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonalists are supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness, and they worship 5 kinds of demigods. They worship the impersonal Vishnu form in the material world, which is known as philosophized Vishnu. Vishnu is the expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the impersonalists, because they do not ultimately believe in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, imagine that the Vishnu form is just another aspect of the impersonal Brahman. Similarly, they imagine that Lord Brahma is the impersonal form in the material mode of passion. Thus they sometimes describe 5 kinds of gods that are worshipable, but because they think that the actual truth is impersonal Brahman, they dispose of all worshipable objects at the ultimate end. In conclusion, the different qualities of the material modes of nature can be purified through association with persons who are of transcendental nature. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Shri Parampara. So, now we're learning in this verse that according to faith, remember this is called the divisions of faith. Faith is all important in this chapter. And like everything else, in this material world, according to the mode of nature that is predominant in your life, you'll have a faith in some powerful man or some god or goddess or some ghost or something else. These faith is being concocted all the time. People are imagining things to be worshipable and taking it. Oh, yeah. What?
Like the faith of Jesus Christ died for sins, so you don't have to worry about doing anything. You already saved.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into that now because that can be very controversial. But we don't shirk the controversy. But it's.
I said because you said there's so many versions of faith.
Yes, and here is being discussed faith that we normally we might even encounter in our lives. People worshiping some tree god. There's a story about Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which is pertinent here because Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the father of Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, and he was a pioneer in the actual resurrection of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the 19th century. What had happened is it had become corrupted by various offshoots that really weren't practicing the authentic Gaudiya Vaishnavism according to Lord Chaitanya. But they were attracted by the apparent, how should I say, the pastimes, the stories of Krishna and Radha and the gopis and all these and that. And so they would emphasize that, And they would cast out. They wouldn't worry about following the scriptures and so forth. They would just want to dance and chant, and they would engage in illicit sex in the name of Vaishnavism. And so Gaudiya Vaishnavism got a bad name in the 18th, 19th century. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was brilliant, and he had been given a great education. The British Raj saw his wonderful erudition, and they trained him, and he got a position as a judge, a minister. So he was a responsible citizen, very intelligent, and he was a Vaishnava. And so he, believe it or not, he could not find Chaitanya Charitamrita in the original Bengali, in Bengal at that time. That's how covered over the genuine Vaishnavism had become. But he finally found one, he read it, and he realized that this was the absolute truth, and he worked hard to resurrect that. He did not have an organization like Bhaktisiddhanta did, because he had his ministership, and he had 10 children and like that, one of whom was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So anyway, it had to be revived. But so one time he was part of the government, and there was a charlatan, but he had developed some mystic powers. This is what you have to remember, that the yogic process, the Ashtanga yoga and the breathing and all of these things, you can develop some special mystic powers that are very impressive to ordinary people. And he could heal people. He had some healing powers too. So he had a big following in part of Bengal. But he was also seditious, meaning that, don't forget, the British were ruling at that time. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was working for the government. And he was saying that I'm going to, from my little perch here in Bengal, I'm going to overthrow the government. I'm going to kill the king or the queen, whoever it was, by my powers, and we'll get the British out and all these different things, So the British sent Bhaktivinoda to investigate. So he came to, with a few policemen around him, he came to one of his meetings. Now, he had a large following because he could cure people, but he also was doing rasa dances, and he was consorting with some of the leading Brahmins' wives and everything. It was very controversial, disturbing. So he came in this clearing in the forest, and there was this Bishikishain, and there was a big fire burning, like a bonfire, and he had all these hundreds of acolytes around him, worshippers. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur challenged him, that you can't be threatening the government and this and that. And he had also a fake Balaram that was his associate. He wasn't there at that time. There was like this whole thing going on. And it describes how he was leaning into the fire and coming out, and he wasn't getting burned. Just showing his powers like this, So Bhaktivinoda left, but he came back a few days later with a big contingent of soldiers, in order to arrest him. And he said, okay, now you're coming with us. He said, no, we're not, But Bhaktivinoda didn't, he had Krishna behind him. He was chanting Hare Krishna, And they actually arrested him and took him, and there was a trial. So he wasn't eating anything, and I don't know if he was drinking water or not, but he was maintaining his health just by mystic power and stuff. He was in the jail, and the trial was going on, but there's a lot of people coming who were his followers, and so it was a big deal. There were a lot of soldiers there too. So the trial was, he was obviously guilty. I mean, all these witnesses, everything. Then Bhaktivinoda was on the verge of passing judgment on him, and so he threatened. He said, "Bhaktivinoda, go back home. You'll see the disaster waiting for you there." So Bhaktivinoda went back home, and his youngest daughter was, I forget what it said. She was having fits. She couldn't stay awake. Then she was speaking in tongues, and it was like she was haunted by a ghost. He had done something. And Bhaktivinoda's wife was pleading with him to please let Bishikishain go, because to save the child. But Bhaktivinoda was saying, no, let him kill all of us. We have to hold. We have to do the right thing. So he went back, and then on the day that when he was going to actually pass judgment, Bhaktivinoda himself couldn't walk. He was almost paralyzed. So he had to be carried to the court on a palanquin, almost like a stretcher, you know. And so he passed judgment. He's guilty, you know. He's going to go to jail for like 6 months or something. And then as he was being taken off, this Bhikshukashen, and these yogis, you know, they let the hair grow, you know, long, long, long. So one of the British guards, he had read, you know, because they were in the middle of the culture, they would read all kinds of books, and he had read that these yogis kept their strength in the hair, you know, the hair, like Samson or something, you know. So he comes up behind him and he clips off his long hair, you know. And this Bhikshukashen, who hadn't eaten anything in weeks, you know, but he suddenly fell to the floor and collapsed in weakness, you know. He had all this strength there. And so they put him in jail, and after a week or so, he committed suicide in the jail. But this was just one of the instances. There's several other where Bhaktivinoda had to deal with these ghostly worshippers. And when I was in Miami, for 6 years, I worked on the Bhagavatam there. And as you may or may not know, Ridhyananda Maharaj, who was in charge there, he was the head translator, and we were working with him. He had a big following in Brazil, in South America. Brazil was a big yatra. They had a lot of temples and everything. And we would in Miami, people would come to America from that south. They often land in Miami, so they would come up and visit, you know. And we hear all these stories about how in Brazil, there were many people who would go into the forest, and they had rituals of worshiping the ghosts in the trees and all this and that. They would offer liquor, you know. It was very mode of ignorance. It was all mode of ignorance worship. And you can see what is the motive. The motive is always some material motive. In the mode of ignorance, and also in India, there's this tantric tradition. This is like part of the Vedic tradition. But it's mystic power. Tantric mantras are chanted, and often this time, let me become powerful and kill my enemy, or let my enemy die, you know, like that. It's very kind of that type of thing. What's going on? So, according to the modes of nature that you're in, you will worship God, or you'll worship some demigod, or you'll worship some ghost, some spirit. Krishna talks about this. It says, oh God, I can't believe I forgot that verse. So my devotees who worship me, they come to me. Those who worship the demigods go to the demigods. And those who worship the ghosts and spirits will go to such beings. So your worship, what you worship. Now today, what would we say? I say that politics is a kind of worship. You gather, the people, you speak, they fire you up, you give your money, you know, you give your work, you sacrifice. This is worship. What do you tend to get from that? You hope to get some recognition. You hope to get some material wealth sometimes, safety from some danger.
Power.
Yeah, power. These demagogues, they work off people's fears and anxieties. They point to some other group, like Hitler did with the Jews, you know. They caused all your problems. We have to eliminate them. And before you long, you have ordinary people who are attacking the Jews, who are arresting them, and there's a Holocaust. You know, you do that. And even today, you know, you have in I think in Myanmar, where you have this group that's was suppressed and exiled from there, and it happens all the time. And because you can easily cause fear in people's minds. Oh, they're different than you. It's all in the bodily concept of life. They have a different color than you. They have different language, different, you know, like that. They're inferior. Therefore, we should exploit them or keep them out of the country, and all kinds of things. This is all the modes of nature. The more you see that fear and anxiety is being played on and happening in a society, it's the mode of ignorance. Because fear and anger and hatred, this is all the mode of ignorance working. So that's what this chapter is all about. The divisions of faith according to the modes of nature. And I wanted to call, I forgot to point out this verse yesterday when we began this chapter. But if you recall, back in chapter 13, there was one verse that I focused on as a critical verse near the end of the chapter. Let's see if I can, I think it's 20, around 20, 22 on page 553. Purusha prakatisto hi bhunkte prakati jangunan karanangura sangosya sadasajoni janmasu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature, thus he meets with good and evil amongst various species. So what is being said here is that we are the Purusha. Purusha, in this case, means, by nature, we're Prakriti. Purusha means the Lord, and Prakriti means nature. We are part of Krishna's material energy, not material energy, spiritual energy. But we're one of his energies. Therefore, he is the Purusha, the Parama Purusha, Parama Purush. But we are imitating. We're imitating by trying to dominate this material energy and trying to enjoy it. That's what that conditioned life means, is that we try to exploit nature, we try to exploit other people, we try to enjoy our senses, gross and subtle, and under the modes of nature. And in this way, we create our destiny. That's what this verse says. The living entity, who's by nature Prakriti, as explained in the 7th chapter, but acting as Purusha, the enjoyer, situated in material energy, Prakriti, Bhunkte Prakriti Jan Gunan, experiences the three modes of nature, the gunas, which are generated from Prakriti, which are part of the material energy. How do we experience it? According to how we associate. Karanam guna sangha. This is a key phrase. The cause of our sadasad yoni janmasu, birth in good or bad bodies. In other words, we can get a human form, and in a human form, we can get a human form in a nice family where we'll have prosperity and safety, and even best is, in a devotee family where we'll be like this little kid, Gaurangi. This is a very, very fortunate birth. You've seen her, the daughter of Purushottam and Priya. And she was here last night, and she's growing up and she's, everything. That's because she's being exposed to Krishna and, sattvic life and wholesome, very wonderful. So that's a great birth. So that means in previous life she was a devotee. She didn't complete the course and go back to Godhead, but she's getting reborn in a devotee family. It's very auspicious. So karanam gunasanga asya, for the living entity, how we associate with the modes, either voluntarily or involuntarily or without any knowledge, or if we're intelligent, try to associate with the modes of goodness in everything that we do and what we eat, who we associate with, what we read, what we hear, then that will be sadasad yoni, that will determine our destiny. Whether we're born in a good or bad situation, human life itself is fortunate, but in human life also it can be very, relatively unfortunate birth. So that's this verse. Now we can, with knowledge, we can decide how we are going to associate with this material energy. Whether we're going to cultivate the mode of goodness or whether we're going to sink into the mode of passion and ignorance, which just produces suffering. So this verse is very pertinent to what we're reading now about the divisions of faith in the 17th chapter, because as described, our faith is also according to three modes. If we associate with people who have faith in some ghost in a tree, what do we know? I'm growing up, I'm 7 years old, my parents worship this ghost in the tree, we've done it throughout generations, so I'll be worshiping the ghost in the tree. That's by our birth. But if we are fortunate enough to come into association of devotees and to have read these books, then we can see what's what, and we can say, I'm not going to put my energy, my adulation, and my money into worshiping this person or this thing or whatever, because I can see that this is just going to keep me bound to this material world. I'm going to put my energy into chanting the holy name, associating with Krishna. You can associate with Krishna just by chanting his name. That's what's so amazing about this process. And that immediately changes your whole orientation about what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong, and what's auspicious and inauspicious. Because you can see the long view, that if you associate with the modes of ignorance and passion, then you may get some pleasure right now, some power and so forth, but it's all very temporary. And you build up a whole body of sins that you've committed that you then have to suffer for. You're not doing anything to negate them. And so that's what present day world is like. People don't know. And so you have just the flood of fentanyl that's coming into the place, and the drugs and the OxyContin, and huh?
It's getting worse.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So this is a kind of an oasis of sanity here. It's wholesome. There's no drugs here. There's if we're going to get intoxicated, we're going to intoxicate with Krishna prema, which is wholesome. It's like they have something called what is it? It's a soma ras. This is something that they drink. You go to heavenly planets, you drink soma. It's not exactly an intoxicant. It's very wholesome. It brings good health. And
Drank it?
no, I haven't had a chance to drink that because I'm not trying to go to the heavenly planets. But I remember when I used to drink the nectar in the Sunday feast in Brooklyn when I first started going to the feast. It was just so attractive, so wholesome. It was a fruit drink and everything, but the bhakti was in there. They mixed it up with a lot of devotion, and I felt blessed when I had some. I used to take home and half quart, half gallon containers, and stuff like that. Prasadam. There's a story, I've been reading the Chaitanya Mangal. It's not so famous as the Chaitanya Bhagavat or the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's several biographies of Lord Chaitanya, and this is one that is not as well known, but it's very famous in Bengal. And it's full of songs, what we have as a translation, so you don't see it, but it's beautiful. And so one of the beginning things here is that, was it Lord Shiva? Who was praying to be able to get a little of Lord Narayan's prasadam, and finally he was able to get some, and then he went back to Parvati, and she was angry with him because they didn't save her any, and then finally he found a little bit under his a thumbnail, and he gave it to her and says, oh, she was so ecstatic, to really appreciate what the availability of Krishna prasadam is, how it's so auspicious. Or Tulsi. We had this little baby Tulsi they brought out this morning. I don't know if you were here. And, going just to be able to sing that song and go around and put the water on Tulsi. When you realize how auspicious this is, after millions of births, to be able to water Tulsi. And what are the benefits? Oh, you get the mercy of Tulsi and you become favored by Krishna. Because Tulsi is so beloved of Krishna. He wears Tulsi garlands and things like that, So when your life is filled with all these things, you realize how fortunate you've been. And this is why, the Guru Puja is so important, and the Mangalarti, they both worship the Guru. How, we're so thankful to Srila Prabhupada for taking the trouble, sacrifice, to come to America and start this movement and give us all these things. And now so many devotees are sustaining the movement. Sometimes you look at this temple, and we have some photos, black and whites from those days, from the 70s, of devotees working so hard to bring this temple to what it is today. It was just a warehouse, just a big movie theater or whatever it was, and all these pillars and the sculpture and what to speak of the deities, and we should be appreciative. How this deity crew is so sincere, they're working so hard to decorate Radha and Giridhari and worship them nicely so that we can get their darshan and their blessings. It's incredible. So that appreciation, Krishna really appreciates when you appreciate the other devotees and when you realize how fortunate you are. So anyway, that's where our faith should lie in the worship of Krishna, because Deva Devajo Yanti Madbhakta Yanti Mamapi. Those who worship the Devas go to the Devas. Those who worship the Bhutas and the Pretas go to the Bhutas and Pretas, but those who worship me come to me. So what's the advantage of coming to Krishna in the spiritual world? No more birth and death. You revive your life of eternal bliss and knowledge. And you're back home. You finally, after a long sojourn, body after body in the material world, you've finally given up your involvement with gross material matter, and it's all in the spirit. Everything in the material world, in the spiritual world, is spirit. I'll give you one verse. There's so many descriptions of Goloka Vrindavan, but this is a key one at the end of the Brahma Samhita. Brahma Samhita is a book that Lord Chaitanya found when he went in South India. He found this one chapter, the 5th chapter. And he thought it was so important that he had it copied and brought it back with him. And another book he found was the Krishna Karnamrita, which he did the same thing. He thought and those two books then became part of the Gaudiya Vaishnav canon, meaning the books that are worshipped and that are studied. So right at the end, after Brahma Samhita means Brahma's song. He's the creator, he's the head of our sampradaya. We belong to the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnav Sampradaya. Sampradaya means a succession of spiritual masters and all the disciples. It's like a tree, because you have Lord Chaitanya had so many disciples and followers, and each of them would also initiate, and so there were all these branches of the tree, and they all worship Lord Chaitanya, so everything is, in coordination. Hare Krishna, you're welcome. Please come in. Hare Krishna. So, yeah, if you could sit on this side, hello. Hare Krishna. All right, you can. Maybe you sit on the bench there, and we'll take a book. We can give you a book. Hare Krishna. That's so. Make sure they get some books. So, so there's all of these members in this of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and Lord Brahma wrote this Brahma Samhita after meditating for a long, long time, and he had realization of Krishna. He saw the whole spiritual world and how everything was constructed. So there's many, many verses there which devotees chant. But at the end, there's some descriptions of Goloka Vrindavan, the spiritual world. And here's these two verses, and it has a very nice lilt to it, the verses. So it goes like this. Shriya Kanta Padamapurusha Kalpadadavo Dhuma Bhumish Chindamana Ganamahi Toya Brahmatam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apimangshi Priyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Padamapitadasvajam Apicha Sayatra Chiradi Srabadi Subhabibjastisumahan Namesha Dhakyo Varvatiti Nihiyatra Pisamaya Bade Sweta Dvipam Tamayam Hagolokamitiyam Vidantaste Santa Chidipedachara Katipiye. So what he's saying there is that in Goloka Vrindavan, the spiritual world, the highest Vaikuntha planet, all of the supreme enjoyer there is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's surrounded by these thousands and thousands of goddesses of fortune who are his consorts. Sriya Kanta Padamapurusha. And Kalpadadabaldum, all the trees are special trees. They're called Kalpavriksha. Meaning that you can go to the tree, and the tree is fully conscious. Everything there is fully conscious. And you can get any fruit you want, a ripe fruit. You can get the bananas, and you go to the same tree, and you can then get some, mangoes like that. So that's Kalpavriksha, the tree that fulfills all desires. So all the trees are like that. Dhuma Bhumi's Chintamani Ganamahi, and the land is made of this Chintamani gem. It's very wonderful, substance. Toya Mamatam, all the water is nectar, all the walking is dancing, all the talking is singing, and one can hear in the distance Krishna's flute playing very attractively, his dear friend. And then Chidanandam Jyoti, everything is glowing with this blissful effulgence that you can taste. In other words, there's no depression or anything there. Everything is just flowing bliss. Chidanam Jyoti Padamapitadasvajmercha. And there are all these Surabhi cows, and they're so happy that they're pouring milk on the ground from their udders. It's kind of oozing out. And then here's the really important point: not a second passes away there. There's only the eternal present. There's no, past and future. Meaning you don't get old. Nobody dies. There's none of that going on. Yeah, it's all the eternal present. Everything is pure spirit. There's no matter there. So, and then this world is known only to a very few pure souls who walk upon the earth, because it's very esoteric knowledge. But this is the home. This is our home. And we should read Krishna's pastimes. It's probably really struggle hard to write the Krishna book, and then we have the verses if you want, and it's all available for us, describing this reality. And the more that we think about it, memorize it, serve that, and try to give it to others, the more that we get Krishna's blessings, and he makes us more and more. The blessing is felt in the more and more taste you have for everything related to Krishna. You want to chant. The chanting. What are some of the verses like? This is from the experience of Rupa Goswami. You know what the holy name is like for someone who is completely pure and is chanting. Tunde tandabani rating batanude tundavali labdeye karna kroda kadambani gatayate karna bade byakspiham chetak prangana sangini vijayate sarvendriyana kutim norjane janidaki yadbidamitai krishneti varnadvahi. He said, I don't know how much nectar these two syllables Krishna have produced. When I chant them, I want to have thousands and millions of mouths and tongues in order to taste them. Just not why just one mouth. Tunde tanda manidating. And when they enter the ears, I want to have millions of ears to relish the wonderful sound. And when they enter the heart, the courtyard of the heart, all the senses become inert and the mind becomes completely fixed on Krishna. And I just don't know how much. And that's because the name of Krishna is non-different from Krishna. Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purnak Shuddho Nityamukto Abhinatvan Nama Namino. Abhinatvan means there's no separation between the name and the named. The named is Krishna. The name is Krishna. Name is Krishna and his name is Krishna. So that's an incredible, if you have faith in that, so that anytime you want, you can associate with God by chanting that name. And the more you concentrate, the more that you hear every syllable and part of each syllable, the more you'll appreciate the potency of that name. I think before, okay, it's maybe time I should share it with you. This is a poem written by an associate of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who lived in that latter part of the 19th century, and he passed away in 1914. That name rings a bell maybe for some of you who come in the back door. I'm not going to take it beyond that. That was the year he disappeared. So his name was Nilakanta, and he wrote the 100 verses about the holy name. And 8 of them were extracted. I don't know if they were extracted by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but they've come to be known as the Kevalashtaka. And they end with a line that's famous to those who know any, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. So every verse ends with that word, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam, those words, which means the holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. So I'm going to share this little poem with you because there's a lot of good instruction in it and description of the glories of the name. So he says, Madaram Madadebhyopi, Mangalebhyopi Mangalam, Pavanam Pavanebhyopi, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Of sweet things, it's the sweetest you will taste at any time. Of things that bring good fortune, it's the perfect paradigm. Of things that purify, it purifies most powerfully. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Abrahmastamba paryantam sarvam mayamayam jagat satyam satyam punak satyam hare nama eva kevalam. From Brahma's realm atop the sky down to the lowly grass, illusion reigns in Maya Devi's treacherous morass. The truth, the only truth, the name of Shri Hari, the holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Saguru sapita chapi samata bandhavopisa shiksheche sada smartam hare nama eva kevalam. He's the guru, he's the father, he's the friend most true. And she's the real mother who most kindly teaches you to always chant and hear the holy name of Shri Hari. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. And his next one is my favorite. Nikshasena hi vishwaso kadarudho bhavishyati kirtaneyamata balyad Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Remember that our final breath may come at any time, no matter if we're old and sick or we're in our youthful prime. So young and old alike should chant the name incessantly. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Hari Siddhavasi Tatra Yatra Bhagavad-gita Gayanti Bhakti Bhavena Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Lord Shri Hari forever dwells wherever devotees whose hearts are fixed on Him and free of all impurities uplift their voices high and sing His name in ecstasy. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Aho dukkam mahadukkam dukkha dukkha ataram yata Kachartam vismatam rakta hare namaiva kevalam. Alas, what sorrow, what great pain, the worst calamity for people to forget the holy name of Shri Hari. Although the name's a priceless gem, mere broken glass they see. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Just fill your ears, just fill them with the name of Shri Hari. Just chant the name with all sincerity. Just sing the name, just sing the holy name eternally. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Hari sadavasit tatra yatra bhagavatajana gayanti Trinikritim jigatsavam rajade sakalopadi chidanandamayam shuddham harinamaiva kevalam. Sorry, I made a mistake. It makes this world appear like bits of straw upon the ground. Resplendently it reigns supreme, divinity and sound. It's filled with transcendental bliss and peerless purity. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. So those are the 8 verses known as the Kevalashtaka, and I composed a little 9th verse, just for wind it up. Inspired to glorify the holy name of Shri Hari, Shri Nilakanta wrote this hymn in Sanskrit poetry. I pray that those who hear this lowly version made by me will chant the holy name of Shri Hari in ecstasy. Hare Krishna. So, well, we have a little bit of time left. Any questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll regale you with a few more shlokas. I warn you. Okay. Yes, Jugal.
In the purport,
2.
it starts, it says,
Which verse is it?
we're in 17:4.
Okay.
Now it is clearly described here that those who are in the mode of passion worship and create such gods, and those who are in the mode of ignorance and darkness worship dead spirits.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people worship at the tomb of some dead man.
Uh-huh.
Is that possibly describing like as we bury our, we go and
I don't think that's what that's describing. No. It's describing, because that's not a kind of worship. You know, you're not hoping to get something from that. It's like an expression of sadness and honoring the person, but it's not worship. Worship means that you're thinking there's a higher power here that can benefit you somehow. You know, just think like Prabhupada talk about worshiping Hitler. You know, because he had become rich by that, so he was, you know, thanking whatever. No, it's a that you're expecting that, you know, the person who was embodied, you know, who's in the tomb. I'm not sure how it works. Do you think they're going to come back to life, or they're still in there, you know? But that you're going to be able to get something like that from that. That this person during his life or her life manifested some special power, some special influence, and you're trying to hook up to that. You're trying to, you know, get some benefit from that. I wouldn't speculate. I haven't really studied it, but it's different than, you know, going to a funeral and something and you know, honoring someone. It's a different thing.
does this sound weird? Is it sometimes I see people chanting in front of maybe a samadhi or
So you mean chanting Hare Krishna? Yeah. Well, that's another thing. That's in the mode of goodness. You see a lot of that if you go to Radha Damodar temple. There are many great souls who are interred there. That's what a samadhi tomb is. Yeah. Is that the actual form is there, you know, and the idea is that person's influence can still be there. With these transcendental personalities, that we're often, like said, Rich, you know, sometimes you don't know this, that on the appearance days and disappearance days, if you pray to those personalities, then, you know, there'll be more influence. In other words, you'll be able to get some benediction like that. Before you have bhakti, obviously. So that's why, you know, we almost always we read about them, we honor them, we chant. That's a nice song, you know, of separation, because remembering them is auspicious. Their qualities, they're all great Vaishnavas, you know, and we believe in all these, you know, these things. And there are spirits, there are higher powers. Read the Bhagavatam. I mean, it's full of that. And so that this worship and following according to tradition is a way of getting blessings, from these personalities. Read about their pastimes and glorify. And so that's all in the mode of goodness, because we understand nobody dies, but it's not that we're worshiping some corpse or something. We're worshiping the spirit that person is and was and is. And we understand that because they're great Vaishnavas, they're still manifest on some plane, and we can get their blessings by, time. Just as time doesn't pass, there's no spatial, difference. Krishna's in the spiritual world, which is millions and billions of miles away, but at the same time, he's here with all of us. And his dear devotees can also, we can also contact them, through these processes. Okay, real quick.
Yeah, I noticed that there's things that are easier to worship than others, like for things that will give us long-term gain, like will free us, help us become more self-reliant, dependent on wisdom and chanting.
Uh-huh.
It's more harder to worship between stuff that gives instant gratification, instant like money.
That's right. That's the difference between Shreyas and Preyas. Is this nice? I gave a Sunday talk on that. Shreyas is the long-term gain, your ultimate, auspicious goal. Preyas is immediate gratification. And the more that you're in the modes of passion and ignorance, you're going to go for the immediate pleasure. Why do I want to go to the Hare Krishnas, I mean, you can't even get a drink there, let's go to the bar. They take it very low, but so it's all in the it's all in the, if you realize the benefit, the long-term benefit, and the wonderful thing about Krishna consciousness is, and then if you really throw yourself into it, and then immediately you will get immediate transcendental pleasure. Like this, I didn't get to go, but many of you know there was a Sangha Mela. I checked out. There was this I think. Vaisheshika Prabhu was there, and he was doing this song, his favorite song of his, about, I forget how the wording goes, but he sings it all the time. And this Nitai Gaur is dancing in my mind, and he was there with the whole crew, and he has this, he's got it down now with a slideshow and everything. And everyone was blissful, and it was completely wholesome. There's no intoxicants, there's no nothing. It's not based on any sex or anything like that. It's all just glorification. And so that's real enjoyment. And devotees who know, they go to those, they pay money to gather by 1,000, more. And that's the wonderful thing about Lord Chaitanya's movement, is that if you learn how to relish, you can also experience immediate gratification, spiritual gratification, and what to speak of long-term, eternal. So it's a question of cultivating the taste and the purification by which you sensitize your spiritual sense to become purified, and then you can relish, Krishna consciousness. And the thing is, you get old, and hey, you still relish, Otherwise, material things, I can't, you spend $1,000 and trying to prolong that craziness, All right. Let's adjourn. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.